This one, his gadget, I'm gonna go out and just say he's basically Kavera. He can walk really quietly and sneak up behind people. This one can teleport places. That's his gadget. This one, autism and runs into a wall. This one,
Don't say autism.
Don't really think that one even has anything. Really. Oh yeah, no, he can turn invisible a little bit. This one
no.
can shoot balls out of his mouth. This one can shoot vomit out of his mouth. This one summons a tree you get stuck on. This one
has a pipe he can jump in.
Can jump at you for some reason and break all of your bones. This one, he always comes back. This one, you've got to do a boogie. You have no option. This one, instead of just being able to run fast, he can spawn bear traps for some reason. This one can teleport places, and when you look at him, he gets all angry. This one steals your skin. This one, if you get bad grades, he's gonna whip you. This one screams a lot and knows where you all are all the time. This one spawns head crabs that attack you, and if you break them, they tell you can teleport to them.
How'd I do that?
How much you use? It's just over time. This or either. No, I see. Wait, who's that? Good. So you should make it again. Basically the same thing. Rated is Tesla. Tesla. So that gets I should like get money off of these. It's both on solo or capture. So let's see what we're bringing with us. This is 104. That's you probably have.
Wait, I can sell Bitcoin.
You probably have 0.00000. I don't even know.
Well, if I get scammed, I'm putting it on the phone.
What are you yapping about?
Me?
No, what's this?
Are you playing CSGO?
Alright, I can get a bouncy bomb, a bone bomb, a small bomb, or the ice cube. Which one should I get? Well, pick one. I'm not just gonna get one. I'm gonna need you to pick it. I don't know. I'm gonna say it again. Small bombs, ice cube, bone bomb, or bouncy bomb. Ask ChatGPT or something. I don't know. Ice cube, small bomb, bouncy bomb, or bone bomb. Ice cube? I don't know which one I don't know the order I just said it in. I said it in different orders like 4 different times. Okay. Ice cube acquired. I'm not even going to end up using it, but you know. So this lobby is like bad. The people here are not good. Like, I'm just wrecking everyone. This is free XP. That's the first time I've died. Ultra kill demo. They grow up so fast. You being able to play Ultra Kill finally, even if it's just a demo. Yo, hold on, look. I found this random guy at We're Just Vegan. Wait, just dig and look. Oh, jeez. Oh, darn it! Someday, I'm gonna. Someday, I'm gonna eat a fork.
Let's launch Windows.
This is the only authenticated portrait of Claude-Émile Jean-Baptiste Litre, the namesake for the unit of volume known as the liter. Born into a French winemaking family, he quickly showed his talents when it came to glassmaking.
That client review was brutal.
We're gonna be underwater for weeks.
I'm already so pruny.
This is fixable. Just use Grammarly. We'll crush it.
I'm already.
In the past couple hundred years, we've called a lot of things the November Revolution. As far back as the 1830s, when Poland rebelled against the Russians, you had the famous October Socialist Revolution that technically took place in November if you use the Gregorian calendar. You then have the creation of the Weimar Republic in Germany following World War I, and most recently we've had the 1989 Velvet Revolution, which ended the communist rule in Czechoslovakia, the same month that the Berlin Wall fell. But I'm here to talk about November of 1974. The United States is coming to terms with the resignation of Richard Nixon just a few months prior. The midterm elections of 1974 under Gerald Ford were a slaughter for Republicans. Democrats stole an astonishing 49 seats, securing the two-thirds majority that they needed to override Ford's presidential veto powers. In the nearly 50 years since, it remains the largest net gain of seats for the Democratic Party. But no one calls this the November Revolution of 1974. That name belongs to a decidedly non-political event. Physics is about to experience a coincidence so remarkable, so improbable, that we're unlikely to see anything like it ever again. By this point, most of the physics community was in agreement that atoms were made up of three things: a dense nucleus of protons and neutrons, surrounded by a fuzzy cloud of electrons. And all of the observable matter in the universe was just combinations of these three ingredients. But by the 1960s, there were those who suspected that maybe there was a level even deeper than the subatomic, an even smaller set of particles that made up the protons and neutrons. Quarks, as they were called, supposedly came in three flavors: up, down, and strange. And despite some experimental evidence in favor of this quark model, it was still up for debate whether quarks were actual physical particles or just useful mathematical concepts that helped to resolve some of the weirdness of certain experiments. Sure, they fixed a few problems here or there, but they seemed like a band-aid applied to what was a huge hole left in the jigsaw puzzle. But this attitude would change thanks to an unexpected result off the California coast. Burt and Richter was leading a team at Stanford, working on their newest $6 million toy, a tunnel loop 80 meters in diameter known as SPEAR. This is a very expensive tunnel in which electrons and their antimatter equivalents are rammed together at high speeds in the hope that they'll explode into new particles. As is typical in physics, when a breakthrough is made, everyone assumed that something must be broken because they weren't even looking for a new particle. And yet, there it was, flashing into existence for just 7 zeptoseconds, with an energy of 3 billion electron volts. This wasn't evidence of the up, down, or even strange quark. This was something new. This was a fourth quark, specifically a fourth quark appearing in tandem with its antimatter equivalent before they annihilate each other. Now, a fourth quark had been proposed before, but never seen in the wild. If this truly was the fourth quark, charm, as it's now called, the band-aid could come off. They had just found the missing jigsaw piece. Richter had wanted to name the hybrid particle SP, after the accelerator that had discovered it, but his co-workers really didn't like that name. So instead, he asked a Greek colleague which Greek letters were still available. Iota was free, but he opted against it since iota's a synonym for insignificant and it seemed a little counterintuitive given the magnitude of this discovery. So in the end, he settled on psi. Later, they would observe the path the particle took using a spark chamber. A spark chamber is a stack of high voltage metal plates filled with helium and neon. When a high energy particle passes through it, the gas ionizes, leaving a visible trail of sparks. And somehow, the spark trail was the exact same shape as the letter psi. Now, this fact on its own is crazy, that a particle was named and then very soon after resembled the shape of its name. But this wasn't the coincidence I mentioned earlier. That exact same month, on the opposite side of the country, a group is working out of Brookhaven National Laboratory on Long Island. Leading the team was Samuel Ting, and with their own collider, the larger and more powerful AGS, they had stumbled onto the exact same charm-anti-charm particle. Ting called the particle J. As the story goes, he chose J because it's remarkably similar to the Chinese character in his own name. Other stories behind the name have cropped up over the years, but if I had to choose a personal favorite story, it's that J is the first letter of his daughter's name. On the 11th of November, Ting flew to Stanford for unrelated reasons and just happened to cross paths with Richter. When both men excitedly told the other about their recent breakthrough, they soon realized that they were talking about the same thing. Later that same day, they jointly made the announcement for the discovery of J/Psi. It's astounding that such an important discovery was made independently within such a short period of time. For this reason, J/Psi is the only subatomic particle that has two officially recognized names. But we don't call it the November Revolution because of one discovery. We call it that because it pointed the whole field in a specific direction, kicking off a decade of discoveries. That same year, Jean Iliopoulos would compile what is now widely understood to be the first ever edition of the Standard Model of Physics. At this point, it's an even larger jigsaw puzzle, still missing some critical pieces. And you know how jigsaws are. Even if a piece is missing, you can still kind of infer what it should look like. Maybe you recognize some of the names here. This outer ring we call the fermions, aka the matter particles. The top half is the family of quarks. Note that you'll never find one of these on their own, only in larger combinations called hadrons. Only 3 years after the discovery of charm, the first evidence of an even heavier fifth quark was found. This new one was named the bottom quark. What this suggested was that there is a sixth partner quark also out there, waiting to be found, and thus the search for the massive but elusive top quark had begun. Gotta tell ya, this is one hell of a naming convention. On the other side here we have the leptons. Unlike quarks, you can actually find these alone in the wild. They consist of the electron, who you may recognize from their greatest hit, electricity. Less well known are its big sibling the muon, and the even more recently discovered, even bigger sibling, tau. Each of these three have their own corresponding pets, the neutrinos. One of them is still just... These three have their own corresponding pets, the neutrinos. One of them is still just implied, but we're pretty sure it's out there. Moving on inward, we have another class of particles, the bosons. If fermions make up matter because they're firm, then the bosons make up the four fundamental forces. I don't have a mnemonic for this one. The photon you've probably heard of. It's responsible for all light and EM waves. You can thank Einstein for that one. At the tail end of the 1970s, the gluon had popped up in experiments. It's responsible for gluing together quarks to make protons and neutrons. The other two here are still missing in action. You have the W and Z bosons, which supposedly control nuclear radiation and decay. Their existence was so certain, though, that theoretical work suggesting them had already won a Nobel Prize. And that's about all there is. That's the Standard Model of Physics. Well, okay, no, not technically. There were those who proposed another boson, one that would tie all the other particles together in a field. And this field would supposedly explain the origin of mass. At this point in time, it wasn't so widely accepted, and thus its time in the spotlight will come much later on. So, as the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, this was the state of the Standard Model and most of particle physics.
Why are we watching
Something
that?
was becoming clear. To make further progress and find those missing pieces, the technology needed to catch up first. The heavier the particle, the higher energy needed to produce it. They needed bigger accelerators. And thus 14 years after their first joint announcement, Burton Richter and Samuel Ting would be reunited. Not for the first time. They had, after all, jointly accepted a Nobel Prize some years back. And yet, despite the prestige of the Nobel ceremony, this occasion was no less monumental. A few feet away from them, the announcement is being made for what will be the largest scientific undertaking in United States history. It would be the particle physics equivalent of landing on the moon. Their mission was to find the holy grail of particle physics. And Ronald Reagan was all in.
Outer space used to be called the final frontier. But today we've begun to tap another frontier, inner space, whose infinitesimal constellations hold out infinite possibilities. I know that some people may question the practical applications of the superconducting supercollider, but the truth is, the practical applications of this knowledge are already changing the way we live. In the face of ever-increasing global competition, the United States must maintain the leading edge in science and technology And building the world's largest particle accelerator is a visible symbol of our nation's determination to stay out front.
Within 5 years, the project will have completely collapsed, and with it, American leadership in the realm of particle physics. Burton Richter would go on to call the project one of high-energy physics' greatest failures. I'm warning you now. This story has a lot of things. What it doesn't have is a happy ending. This was a failure so big, so massive in its scope, that it's hard to put into words. Instead,
Massive?
I think it's better if I let you see for yourself.
Somebody say massive?
If I gave you a rock and asked you to describe what the inside of it looked like, with no access to fancy tools, what would you do? Personally, I'd throw it at the ground repeatedly until it broke. At some point, humans realize that the best way to find out what something is made of is to smash it open. And if it's a rock or an apple, our hands can get the job done. But if we wanted to break apart something small, like a proton, for instance, we're going to need some specialized gear. Hence, particle accelerators. A particle accelerator, or more specifically a collider, consists of 3 main components. 1. A tunnel system, generally a circular loop that is held at vacuum and at temperatures close to absolute zero. This is what the particles will be traveling through. 2. A set of ultra-strong magnets. These serve 2 purposes. Most of the ring is surrounded by equally spaced magnets, and their job is to steer the charged particles around the ring. Additionally, you have a specific region where the magnets are used to speed up the particles once per loop, like a booster in Mario Kart. After thousands of loops per second, the particle has approached the speed of light. And finally, 3. The collision zone. This region usually contains an advanced detector that gathers hundreds of gigabytes of data per second. Think blood splatter analysis, only real. Modern accelerators are typically built in several stages, with linear injecting segments, multiple booster sections, etc., like the incremental stages of a rocket. But by and large, accelerators are just big guns we build underground, and then we shoot really, really tiny bullets, and then we hope that the bullets ram into each other and explode. Why? Because collisions release a ton of energy, and energy is related to mass through Einstein's